Well, I've reached another moment of truth in the project. I reached a stopping point yesterday where I had cut all the box joints on one portion of the panels. The jig I made is like a foot long, and from the beginning I was planning on doing it in two steps. Um, and I was planning on just using the router and the router bit itself to set the new position of the panels to where I could finish them off. But I hadn't given that enough thought, and in the same way that I hadn't given enough thought to the spacing below the jig, that I couldn't just jam the board up against the jig. I think I'd actually thought about that at one point. It's like, hey, I can't have, the router bit hitting the bottom of the jig. There's going to need to be some space. But at some point I kind of forgot about that. So now, between those two things, having to set the horizontal and vertical position of the panels, and that's 8 different times, each side of 4 panels, and then coming and having the resulting cuts actually line up properly, I think it's a pretty low probability of that happening. So I'm considering whether I should go ahead and make a regular box joint jig, which I showed you in the making the B supers video, which I was worried wouldn't work because it's sort of small and I have big panels. Maybe I should just make one which doesn't take long, have it be, larger and hopefully more stable. I think that may be my best course of action. But actually, rather than jump up and run and do it, I'm going to give it a little thought right now, at least through this cup of coffee. Well, I've had a little chance to think and do some more Google searches, and I'm not sure why I didn't find some of the results that I searched for originally, but I found this time, having to do with making, well, a blanket chest with box joints, which is exactly what I'm doing. And I found something that would have been a fantastic guide. And looking at it, it's one of those duh moments. As an engineer, I have a tendency to think of things more complicated than they really need to be. Try not to do that, but I did it in this case. I was worried that I couldn't make a jig myself out of wood, that it wouldn't be precise enough, or that it was going to be an issue. All I would have had to have done was made a jig the same way I make box joints. The jig is basically looks like box joints. Looks like a board with its head box joints cut into it, except that the joints, the cuts are deeper. That's all it would have taken. I could have made one plenty long, and I think that's what I'm going to do now, and use it to correct the joints that I've made already, because I measured them and they're not all the same depth. Anyway, I'm going to use it to finish off what I have. And if that doesn't work, then I've decided, well, not decided, but hopefully I don't have to do this. I can just trim the ones I've made off, make the chest a little bit narrower, about 1 inch narrower, and then cut all the box joints using the handmade, or not handmade, but you know, the wooden jig that I'll make. I still need to give it a little more thought on, but I think that's basically what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to shift over to another Christmas present. I've got several to make, so I'm going to let the other one sit, leave the frustration behind, and work on something different, and hopefully put a put a win under my belt, so I can come back starting almost fresh and make some progress. We'll see how it goes.